Broadcasting from the studios of WKEN, where every day it's the weekend. It's the Ken Calvert Show with your host, Ken Calvert.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the casual studios of WKEN, where every day it's the weekend. Coming up today, I have a great interview with Carlos Santana. We chatted about the 2010 release of Guitar Heaven. The album is a compilation of some of the greatest guitar heavy tracks. I don't know if that's a great way of describing it, but tracks like Whole Lotta Love, Can't You Hear Me Knockin', Smoke on the Water, Back in Black, plus 10 others. It's really, really good. Came out back in 2010. I'll let Carlos explain to you how the songs were picked. I'll tease you, though, and say that Clive Davis was the co-producer. But first, I have to tell you a quick story. It all goes back to this past Tuesday. About, 2.5 months ago, I just didn't feel right. There were stomach issues that were going on that I just didn't get. And my appetite was like gone. It was zero. A couple of times late at night, I'd wake up and I really felt miserable. I mean, like something really was going wrong, but I didn't do anything about it at the time. Well, finally, I had an event that really, really shook me up. I thought I was having a heart attack, but it passed, and so I thought the next day, man, I got to see a doctor. So I go see the doctor. We chatted, did some blood work, and we ordered up a couple of tests, one of which was an ultrasound. And so they do an ultrasound of the abdomen area. What were they looking at? The pancreas, the liver, the gallbladder, the whole area, the region. And it comes back perfect. Everything was great. Everything was just fine. So I end up having these swallow tests. Those were really interesting. I did a thing called a cookie swallow. I did something called an egg swallow. I did something where I swallowed a cup of they were like Pop Rocks. And then I chased it with a little weird drink, and it was like these little booms, little fireworks were going off in my gut. And there was a radiologist right there with me, and he was like, no, everything's good, everything's good. The egg test that I was telling you about is really wild because you go in early in the morning, about 6 o'clock in the morning. They take a scan of your stomach. You have to fast, so your stomach is empty. Then the tech, his name was Robert, great guy, said, have a seat, I'm going to go make you breakfast. He goes in the back and scrambles 2 eggs. I get 2 pieces of toast with jam, and inside the scrambled eggs is a secret sauce, nuclear, okay? But I got to eat all of the eggs. Pretty good, because I was starved, and I was rocking with that toast. I get right up after I get done eating, and he takes another scan. And he says, okay, you can get lost for an hour. I said, okay, I can do that. And he said, we're going to do that 4 more times. Not eating the eggs every time, but, taking the scan. Well, it turns out everything was just fine. Came back perfect. Okay, what is going on? Everybody thinks it's my gallbladder. All the indications are it's a gallbladder. Let's go look at the gallbladder via the MRI. Done that a number of times. Not a big fan of the MRI, but I don't think anybody is, although I have one friend that said he fell asleep the minute he went in. I'm not buying it. I don't believe it, because they're really noisy in there. MRI comes back. Nope, not the gallbladder. Well, I don't want to bore you guys to tears, but I just had to do the setup so I could get to the finish, all right? So they end up doing one more thing. They do an ultrasound of my abdomen. This time, they're going to look at an artery called the superior mesenteric artery. Shocking that I remember the name, but I do. And I will forever remember the name, and I'll tell you why, because it turns out it was about 75% blocked. Therefore, everything in my stomach is getting about 25% of the blood supply that it needs to function. Well, I got to tell you, I was thrilled. I've never been so happy in my life to find out that something was really wrong. And I said, what do we do? And they said, we'll stent it. So I have a cardiac catheterization procedure to open the superior mesenteric artery My doctor puts a long, thin tube inserted into my groin, sees exactly where the artery is blocked, puts in a stent, pops her open, and bingo, I'm as good as new. Now, I told you all that because I wanted you to be impressed with how well I said all those big words. Those big medical words like cardiac catheterization. Anyway, I want to thank the highly skilled doctors, nurses, and everybody at Ascension Providence Hospital in Southfield, Michigan, for the incredible care, comfort, compassion, and the laughs that hopefully I provided. I could tell you so much more about this procedure, but it truly is too much information. But I wanted to do my podcast from the cath lab, but they said, no, that ain't going to happen. And then I wanted to do it in recovery, but that wasn't going to happen either. But anyway, I learned an awful lot about the medical field, not only on Tuesday and this past 2 months. It's been wild. It's been absolutely wild. The one thing I did come away with is this. No matter what doctor's office you call, the very first thing they're going to tell you to do is, if it's an emergency, hang up and call 911.
If this is a medical emergency, please hang up and call 911 or go to the emergency room.
If this is an emergency situation, please hang up and dial 911 or proceed to the nearest emergency room or urgent care center.
Please hang up and dial 911 or go to your nearest emergency room.
Now, this is just me personally, but I can't think of anyone who's in really dire straits that decides, I'm not doing well. Where's my phone book? I think I'll call the doctor's office and they'll tell me what to do. Anyway, when I was in recovery, I have too much time to think anyway. But when I was in recovery, I really had a lot of time to think. And I was thinking a lot about what I was going to do on my next podcast. And here's what it is. It's about the phone. I'd already picked the Carlos Santana track that I was going to play for you, but I didn't have an idea of where I wanted to go. So I decided I needed to talk to you guys about how important the phone is. Like, you don't know that. But I'm talking about the phone and the marriage to radio. Dun, dun, da, da, dun, dun, da, da. Here we go. Well, here's what you got to imagine. A radio station without a landline telephone with 6 lines pouring in. You got it? Okay. Now, without the phone line in the studio at a radio station, well, heck, that's like a plant without water. Sure, the radio station survives for a couple of days, but then it starts to wilt a little bit because, well, heck, it doesn't have any water. So, here's what I'm thinking. Without a telephone, well, that's like a water source of fun for a radio station. That's where all the pull-my-finger stunts happen. Radio, since the day I started listening, and as far back as I can remember, has been driven by the power of the telephone. It couldn't survive without it, as I said earlier. Going back to the 3rd grade, for example, listening to Lee Allen's Make It or Break It, he would play a new song, and you had no choice but to call the radio station if you wanted to make it or break it. If you loved the song, you wanted to make it. If you didn't like it, you wanted to break it. But you had to call Brother Lee Allen on the horn. All you got to say was make it or break it. That's all you got to say. I would beg my folks for the phone. Usually they wouldn't let me use it. Like most kids, I grew up in a house with 1, maybe 2 telephones. Now, when we want to reach a radio station, we have our cell phones, we have texts, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and of course, the good old landline. Every great morning show has at least 1, maybe 2 people who are really, really gifted at working the phones. Drew and Mike did it really, really well. In fact, they were great at it. I believe one of the best at pulling off phone pranks was Dick Purton. Purton's People. His bits were arguably the funniest I ever heard. He could manage to keep his poise and stay in character no matter how hard it was to do, especially when the rest of the crew was falling over and just dying from laughter, but they couldn't make any noise, but you could hear it muffled in the background. I remember one time when Dick called a guy on a Monday morning. The fellow had spent the entire weekend planting, I believe it was over 100 arborvitae along his lot line. He had just bought the house a couple of months earlier. Spring day, beautiful outside. Hands are bruised and blistered. He's physically exhausted. The guy's wife calls Purton and gives Purton a heads up that her husband's about to take on this epic aggro feat. She asks Dick Purton to kind of punk her husband by calling him on Monday morning and telling him he's from the city's engineering department and that he has encroached on his new neighbor's lot by about 4 inches, and the shrubs would all have to come up and be replanted. Purton takes on the personality of a DPW city engineer and pulls it off seamlessly. It was incredible. I'm in my car. I literally have to pull over because I am laughing so hard. This poor guy, nearly crying, and Purton would not budge. He didn't even change his voice that much. He goes, just doing my job. Well, you should have known where the lot line was. Let me ask you this. Did you pull a permit? So he badgers the guy. Naturally, the guy's just about to break, and break bad, ballistic bad. Dick identifies himself, and everybody bursts out laughing, including the guy, of course. But I don't know how much further Purton could have taken it, but that's the point. You all hear the expression, push the envelope. That's what he did so well. The envelope happened to be the telephone, the landline. Back in the early days, I'm starting to feel really old because I say that a lot. Back in the early days when we only had landlines, and if those babies went down, well, by golly, by gosh, you felt like you was on a deserted island. But it really was terrifying. I remember doing the all-night show at a couple of radio stations. Your only buddy was the phone. You would just wait for somebody to call. You had your regulars, your buddies. There'd be Bertie, and Big Bob over at the plant, and just taking a break. Sounding great tonight. Those were your buddies. Those were your friends. That was your moral support. The phone line, that blinking white line. Bink, bink, bink. You didn't want to lose the caller. You just never wanted that light to go off while you were talking. You wanted to run over and pick it up just so you could have somebody live to talk to. Oh, so I put forth this proposition. Imagine no. I'll take caller number 9 right now. You want those Bob Seger tickets for DTE show number 7? I'll take caller number 9 right now. 313-555-5555. 313-555-5555. Well, without the phone line, there'd be no battle of the sexes. Nobody calling up going, hey man, play Freebird. Sports talk, news talk, they wouldn't survive. No place for a listener to call and say, you suck. Click. Without the telephone, radio would not survive. Oh, I've been the victim. Oh, you bet I have. It's been turned on me many, many times. But fortunately, I saved one, and I'm going to play it for you now. But one more brief story, then coming up, Carlos Santana. I promise you. I don't know what happened to me. I just got onto this phone thing, and now I'm on a roll, not a bagel, bada boom, bada bing. Anyway, it did happen to me. The interview you're about to hear with Carlos Santana was done over the phone. But it was done from home, my home studio. Small little studio, but it's got what they call a telos system in it, meaning I can take a phone call and record it easily into my computer. And it works very, very well. Jim O'Brien, Big Jim's house on 94.7 WCSX, was the producer of the program. He set up the interview, and he told me that I would be talking with Carlos Santana at exactly 1:30. He was very tight for time. Don't be early, don't be late, be on time. He had my home phone number. Be by the phone. Okay, message delivered. I'm running around doing errands, but by golly, by gosh, I'm going to be home by 1:30 to take that phone call from Carlos Santana. I get home, and I notice that I've received a message, and I thought, well, that's odd. I'm on time. It couldn't be from Carlos Santana. But then I heard this.
Saved message sent today at 1:07 p.m.
Hello, Ken. It's Carlos Santana. I'm calling from my interview. You're on the phone, but you're on the phone with me. I'm trying to be positive, trying to run basic light. You're not answering. Do you think I'm amusing?
End of message. To erase this message, press 7. To save it, press 9.
I freak out like there's no tomorrow. My blood pressure, I'm in the stroke zone. I'm like so freaked out. He got me so good. I mean, he nailed it. That's what I'm talking about. That's the beauty of the phone stunt. We can hand it out, but can we take it? O'Brien, to his credit, did a brilliant job, and I went for it hook, line, and sinker. So I guess I got my just desserts because it worked. And that's the beauty of the phone. Radio could not survive without the phone, and I know I keep pounding that in over and over again, but, it probably all started when we were just little kids calling up people and going, "Hey, have you got Prince Albert in a can? You better let him out." So let's all give the radio station landline telephone a big hug and say, "Thanks, Telly. Without you, we're nothing." Coming up, I did this Carlos Santana interview on my phone, my landline phone from home. That's right, I have a landline phone at home, and damn it, I'm proud of it. I'm glad I kept it. On the interview you are about to hear, I was talking with Carlos about the release of Guitar Heaven, 14 tracks of pure heaven in my world, 14 tracks of cover songs that Santana has put his incredible stylings on. It's truly a remarkable album. It goes back a number of years. So let's go to the phone line right now and say hello or namaste to Carlos Santana. Carlos, my supreme blessings to your soul.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule. We chatted not that long ago when you performed at DTE. On my way home today, I picked up a copy of Guitar Heaven, the greatest guitar classics of all time. I have not stopped listening to it. It is, without a doubt, unbelievable.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
I cannot, for the life of me, pick one favorite, and I'm not embellishing. I mean this sincerely. There are so many. You've stayed so true to the music that I just want to compliment you. Although you've added Carlos Santana to the music, and it's even better. And you've taken some of the greatest artists of all time and made their songs, their legacy, better. You have to feel great.
Yes, I feel really, really grateful, and especially to Clyde Davis, my brother Clyde Davis, because he is the architect of this bridge. The requirement was completely new, totally familiar, and be genuine, be true, be honest, be sincere, and bring all that energy into it. But I believe that the main requirement was completely new, totally familiar.
When I think about it, though, how does Carlos Santana sit down and decide he's going to take 14 tracks? First of all, you just blister your way through Whole Lotta Love. I don't know if you or Clive decided how you were going to track and order the disc, but it just smokes, my brother.
Oh, thank you. I know when to defer. When I looked at the Lakers or I looked at a lot of teams, I learned a lot from Magic Johnson because he knew how to defer to Abdul-Jabbar. It's important to know when to take center stage and when to defer. You do what you do best and trust that someone else do what they do best. You can't write the songs, play all the songs, produce the songs. So it's important to know when to defer and to trust and let people do what they do best as well.
All right, so here's a question for you. Did you decide on Smoke on the Water? Did Clive decide to let's do Smoke on the Water? Which member of the team decided that track would be on this disc?
That was probably Clive. I selected 7 songs. He selected 7 songs.
Blessed by sharing some time with the legendary Carlos Santana. You do an incredible job with While My Guitar Gently Weeps. I'm gonna take a chance here and guess that was your decision to do that one.
Well, yes. I dream of working with, sharing with India Arie and Yo-Yo Ma and Joe Cocker. And I love that I'm still in a place where I can dream while I'm awake. Next time, because you're from Detroit, next time we'd like to do, if this keeps going the way it's going and we're able to do part 1 or part 2, part 3, I'd like to do some Motown songs because there are some of the greatest rock songs are also from Motown.
I would love to hear you perform with Aretha Franklin.
Hey, are you kidding? With the Queen of Soul, it would be a supreme honor.
Can you imagine, her doing You Make Me Feel Like a Natural Woman with Carlos Santana busting a little lick for us?
Or her singing If I Was Your Woman. Because she already did Natural Woman. Now, But if I Was Your Woman, the Gladys Knight song, whoo, lordy.
You know, Carlos, I want to get back to this disc. It's available in stores right now. I'm going to go so far as to say I think it's the best thing that I've heard from you, and you've done everything you do is spectacular. But this reminds me a lot of the feeling I got from Supernatural.
Oh, thank you for saying that. As you know, for me, is learning to get out of the way. Whether you're a baseball player, basketball player, or football player, or guitar player, learn to get out of your own way, and then that's when the extraordinary supernatural energy really happens.
You pay high praise to Clive Davis. For the sake of the listeners, I certainly know Clive Davis. Will you explain a little bit about the association and what he represents to music?
There's only 3 people on this planet who are close to do what he does. That is Claude Knobs from Montreux and Mr. Udo in Japan, and of course Clive Davis, because each one of them is assigned and designed to help the artists and the musicians, and they fight for us with the record companies for us to be given freedom to expand our vision. Now, Clive Davis is a visionary, so he's not only like it's really difficult to put a hat on him that he's only this or he's only that. Basically, he's a visionary, that helps create a bridge between the artist and the audience. He sees Metallica or Santana or Nirvana or Led Zeppelin before people see it, and he goes and convinces the record company, you gotta sign this band.
Mm-hmm.
So we need him. He plays many roles, but in this one, Guitar Heaven, he is the architect of the vision and the concept, because he saw the best songs on Rolling Stones and the best guitar players, so to him it was just natural, hey, let's just do this. And I was like, I don't know if I want to do that. That's kind of scary. And so he called me 3 times in 1 year, and he actually did convince me he's very resilient, and I'm glad I deferred to him.
Who would have thunk that Carlos Santana would cover Photograph, Back in Black, a couple of songs that Bang a Gong, Fortunate Son, songs that if I were to say to somebody, I have the new Santana album and it features Fortunate Son, Back in Black, Photograph, they would go, that can't be Carlos Santana.
Well, believe it, and it was from the heart and for the heart, and I feel really grateful, and I'm glad I'm in America.
I think I once heard you say that one of your favorite bands, because of their simplicity, was The Doors, and Jim Morrison, basically a poet that transferred that energy, his being a vocalist. You do a haunting, which is a super compliment to you, on Riders on the Storm.
Yes, The Doors are my favorite band. I love all of them. The Beatles, the Rolling Stones, Jimi Hendrix, Cream. But The Doors, to this day, when I put it on, that's pure shaman music.
If you were to pick, if you had a favorite, I know they're all your children, all 14 of these cuts on this incredible album. If you were to pick a favorite from Guitar Heaven, the greatest guitar classics of all time, from Santana, it would be
Back in Black with Nas. Yeah, we hit it hard. It's hard. It's pimples. It's energy from a 12-year-old to a 27 with no apologies for having serious testosterone with fever pitch of energy.
I know that you must be a fan of Ginger Baker. Sunshine of Your Love is full of timbales and full percussion. Whose idea was that?
Mine. He's my brother and my friend. I hope he's still my friend after he listens to this.
Carlos, everything else in your life is good, my friend?
Yes, I'm very grateful. All the highest blessings to you and your family, and stay in your heart. Thank you so much.
And will you please come back to Detroit soon?
Yes.
And as we like to say, I'll say nice things about Santana. You say nice things about Detroit.
Absolutely.
All right. Be well, my brother.
Take care. Peace.
Be well.
You can subscribe to the Ken Calvert Show podcast on Apple iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, Spotify, or iHeartRadio. It's also available by going directly to www.thekencalvertshow.com. You can reach Ken at kencalvertpodcast@gmail.com. The preceding program is the property of Ken Calvert and may not be broadcast without the written permission of Ken Calvert, unless you want your knees broken.